same time, we can't do this overnight, like a lot of you have mentioned. So then why are we doing this in one day? 5 hours, that's all we get?
I think it's students being part of the decision-making process, and like, you came to us already with these different principles. So like, where is our actual decision? I mean, at first they weren't even written down, the ones that we came up with in our groups that we spent a lot of time discussing. So it's kind of like this constant feeling of being unheard and then not seeing results from the administration and the university.
I specifically said at the end that if you didn't see your principal represented to tell us, because we had dozens that were literally being thrown at us. So I think it's a little unfair to say that you didn't see your principal there, because I specifically said, tell us, and we'll put it in.
No, I meant at the beginning, like just throughout the process, how we were given principles and then we decided.
You weren't given principles. These principles emerged through all the meetings that we had on campus.
Okay, but students have never been a part of that.
Because
as far as
because students haven't shown up.
Okay, but you have been choosing, like, I'm sorry, maybe not you, maybe like this board or this committee have been choosing to hold things that are inaccessible to students, like holding this during finals week. That's why students aren't showing up. Students also don't show up because they don't.
The student forum wasn't during finals week,
Students are
and you
also
didn't
not.
show up. The prioritization survey went to all the students on campus, and only a couple hundred sent in
Can I give an explanation
responses.
for that? Students do not feel heard in general by the university. Why should we show up to things like this if we don't even know if what we care about is going to be listened to and carried through?
With all due respect, I think we only have 23 minutes left in our time together. We want to really appreciate do something productive as a group and address your concerns outside the time that we have right now to work on this project. Would you be willing to consider that as a way of respecting the time of the other people in this room?
I think there may also be a way to combine all this in the sense of, I'm sure that the campus absolutely not only needs the input of the students, but needs to have the students feel like they've been listened to, right? So I don't think that's anything that we need to argue about. But also, I mean, maybe to your point, is there a way that you guys could organize and advise a way to provide that input to this process, right? Because that's something that you're passionate about, something you know about, something that you want to do. I mean, it doesn't seem like there has to be a conflict here. I think there's a disagreement. There's some listening that's not happening on both sides. But how can we actually move together to get that input into this process, which is only going to benefit the entire process? And that is separate from the aggregate process that we're trying to do here. So I think we can have a win-win if you guys, I mean, I don't think you're disagreeing with them. It's just difficult to get the information, so we just need to think harder, and you guys are the best to advise how to do that. It's just, that's not the point of the process right now.
Can I understand what's happening next after this? Because I guess I've got a lack of clarity. Because a lot of the groups did provide alternative language where we merged themes. There was great feedback from the groups about kind of we like this, not this. Can we put these together? Because I'm not clear if these dots then become the vision for the whole campus. Seems like you've got a lot of inputs that you're going to have to filter through. Is that correct? I mean, it's not like this is it, right?
Ideally, if we'd had the time, we didn't want the kind of straight voting that people engaged in to then just be the final result. So the most dots are here, so clearly we go forward with that. We wanted to have a conversation about, does that seem to capture what people wanted? Does that seem right? And we wanted to go through and see if the group collectively now, outside of those small groups, could come to some agreement on what their top 6 were. Then there's going to be some sort of merging that has to take place between the other 3 future state design workshops and the different results that came out of them to try and produce that survey that then will go out to try and capture not everything, because we can't possibly do that, but at least the spirit of the points that were made in the various groups, and to try and find the points of convergence.
So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm hearing that this isn't the end all, and that there's opportunity for students to, and others of us who may not feel like everybody's here collectively, because there's also, even though there's thousands of staff on campus, not all the staff are here. So I think there's a continued conversation that's gonna happen, and there are ways that could potentially,
So this is
we're gonna
not-
be responding to something.
This is not the only bite at the apple. so to speak.
But, you know, I think your point was quite productive, and from my point of view, I feel like I've engaged in a lot of outreach to student groups. I'm hearing from at least the students who attended here that they don't feel that that outreach was sufficient. So the suggestion is, what would be a way of having outreach that would allow you to contribute to the process? Bearing in mind that we're not going to have the whole process grind to a halt, but that we're going to try and meaningfully add you into the process so that you feel like your voices are heard. Can we do both in keeping this larger process on track, allowing people to have the conversation and to weigh in on these points, and also create an environment in which you feel actually heard by the institution?
I think respect is a good word to use. Respect is something that as students we've always asked for from everyone. I feel like as students we're often not heard. In regards to outreach, personally, we're part of an organization called MECHA. We have outreach to the EVC and multiple times, and she once gave us a time to meet with her, but then had to cancel it. And there has been an intent to outreach and to be able to say what we want, but there has often been times where we have been dismissed. I think what we can want is to have like a equal say in this, because this is our education. We want to be part of that decision making as well as students. Because currently we know that the steering committee is just conformed all by administrators and some staff. We know that there's in that very much representation in regards to diversity, also in regards to the staff and the steering committee. And I also don't think it's fair that only one person gets to say that half the say. I think it is good that they're listening to our advice or saying that they're listening to it, but how do we actually know that is going to be actually taken into consideration when taking a decision if there's no actual transparency? And I think we can all agree that education is something that's really important for all of us. So if the whole school is not necessarily educated on this theme or this thing specifically, how can we continue to move forward? I think that's what's going on with the current political climate. A lot of people are not educated with how does our government work. Current people are not educated in regards to the laws and policies that are being changed. And that's exactly what's going on here. People are not educated with what is a strategic academic plan. I talked to some peers today. I bet if I go outside and I ask someone, hey, do you know what's a SAP? They'll probably be like, what? What's that? And it's like really important for us to educate ourselves on this, and not just us in the room, but everyone else who's outside, who's also going to be affected. And just because they weren't able to make it, like that's a very narrow view of like pull yourself by the bootstraps. If you can make it, it's your fault. It's not my fault. I'm gonna keep moving forward. That's a very messed up way to see things. If someone cannot make it, begin to analyze, well, why couldn't they make it? You know, what did I do wrong that maybe I can do better? If I need to extend this in a longer time, more than a year, then perhaps that's what we need to do. But if we're a community, if that's what we say we are, as UCSC, a community, then we should work as a community. If we call ourselves the original authority and question authority, then that's exactly what we're doing right now. And we're priding ourselves in that. And we're going to do that because we need to be educated on this, because this is our education. And we hope this matters to y'all, and we hope you respect that decision that we're having.
We've done outreach to MECHA. I don't know if you get responded. Andrea can tell me if it's on our calendar. So we proactively tried to set up an appointment. We send emails to the entire campus community every 3 weeks giving updates on precisely what we're doing. We agree absolutely on that point that we want people to be educated on what it is that the strategic academic plan is doing. And as I said, I've done constant outreach to students, and based on the comment from the audience, I'm saying, tell me what we should be doing so that your voices are heard. I mean, I heard you say you're unsatisfied. I heard you say you don't trust. I get that. But I'm saying give me concrete steps. You also said that there's no diversity on the committee. The City on the Hill newspaper talked about that, which I corrected during the interview process and corrected after the fact, and they still printed a false story. The committee that's most responsible for evaluating and assessing everything that comes out of this plan is the Academic Advisory Committee, which they didn't even mention in their article, which has 16 people on it. Half are people of color, half are women. It's an incredibly diverse group, and there are 2 student representatives on it. So you can fault us for a lot of things, but you can't fault us on not taking diversity into account on the decision-making body for the strategic academic plan.
I think that diversity is more than numbers. But on top of that, I just wanted to say one thing. You're asking us what you should be doing to outreach to students. I thought that was your job as administrators to serve the students.
And what I'm telling you is that I've done tons of outreach to student groups. You're telling me I failed, and I'm saying, so tell me what I should be doing. And you're saying it's my responsibility to be doing it, but you won't tell me?
No, I'm saying that students are here for education. We're not here to tell people how to teach us, how to, that's not, I mean, yes, we're all working together, but I thought that the reason why admin are here, and there's so many admin, and they just keep increasing, is to better serve the students here. But correct me if I'm wrong, but if they don't know how to serve the students, that sounds like a problem to me. And if students have to constantly be educating on top of being here to learn more and working to try to afford everything, I don't understand why we have to be explaining to you all that things need to change when obviously things are not working in terms of your student outreach.
So I'm going to do a time check.
I just want to make a suggestion. Good way on the part of the administration. When we mentioned this could be a survey that goes to the whole campus, Martin, you said if the EDC approves. Well, that would be an opportunity for the EDC, I think, to show that she's willing to hear all the voices, because many people cannot go to workshops or, And this is about principles that I think all of us are engaged. So that would be a good move on the part of the EDC to show the students that their voices will be.
And I said I would take it to the provost. It's not my call.
No, I understand, but maybe my question then is, what would be your recommendation? Do you have a recommendation on that, and do you feel that this would make a difference and would be appropriate?
My concern is the educational component. That I was told that the emails are too long and people don't want a lot of context to go through, and yet I have to produce a lot of emails. I have to produce a long email to explain what went on in the 4 workshops, why these principles take the form they do. If students aren't willing to pour through the email, then the vote doesn't become particularly meaningful. But I'm willing to do additional outreach and education. I've done outreach that I thought was pretty comprehensive, and been told that it isn't comprehensive, and so I'm asking for ways in which I can make it more comprehensive.
I think more time also would help. So if the survey is not just for a week, but it's for longer, so that students can also get informed, or they can organize in their groups and talk about it, and then take the survey, that could be another possible way to do it.
I think it's also a structural thing where why is it that we can't just decide with students and faculty and staff what we want in terms of our academics? Why does it have to go up this ladder and Marlene Trump gets to decide? I'm just curious, that doesn't sound very fair in terms of if we're talking about how we can all have agency, how this can be a democratic process, how this can be collaborative, all the things we discussed in our group about how we want to envision our education, how can we envision our education to be that way if the system that we're going through to try to get this academic plan is literally going up to the top of this high